I swear this thing is lighter when you grab it by the handle, but doing this, it makes a trip. Oh, put it up on the shoulder like a boom box. This is the Oupes 1800. The 1800 is for watts, not watt hours. Let's talk about it. What up? I'm I from askivesolar. I want to talk about this Oupes, Oupes. I call it the Oupes. I've always called it the Oupes. It will forever be the Oupes. This is the Oupes 1800. It's an 1800 watt inverter with a 1488 watt hour battery capacity that is LFP. Now, this is a kind of no frills basic budget power station that has been just working very well, and it has an option that offers a lot of flexibility, but we'll talk about that a little later. This is the first Oupes that I had, so this is not my first Oupes. And this one, as much as I had like an issue with the solar charging on it, it's really been working very well for me. So that speaks to the longevity of the brand. I think something was weird here. But anyway, let's get back to the big boy. Let's talk about the input and the output on this. It basically has all of the ports on the front with the exception of the flashlight. The flashlight on the back is a nice diffuse one. We'll get back to that a little later. It has three 1800 watt capable AC outlets. That's total, not 1800 watts each. They are not grounded. They have like the full ground plug, as you can see here. It also has a 12 volt socket that's rated at 10 amps. It has two barrel connectors, 5521, which is interesting because you can fit 5525 in there, but it doesn't work. But it's just interesting that it fit. It has a USB-C PD port for 60 watts. And it has another PD port for 18 watts. And then it has two quick charge USB normal style ports. You also have your charging right up front, and it has an 8mm port that you use to charge it. In the box, there is a power adapter, power brick. It's not the fancy all-in-one built-in stuff. You got to actually plug it in. And there's a brick associated with it. There's also a 12 volt to 8mm DC charger. No solar cable in the box. Like, what are you gonna do at this point, right? Even with the first one, they have nice, big, bright, lovely screens. This one is no different. It shows the percentage of capacity that you have. It also shows the input and output watts. It doesn't fluctuate. It shows you both of them. I think the first one actually only showed you the highest amount coming in. So this one having both of them is a welcome change. It has some icons that shows you which thing is on, so on and so forth. Nice screen though. It also will show you time remaining, so that's good. The design is really interesting. You know, me being a smaller YouTuber, I didn't get the device when it first came out. So now at this point, it's a little bit interesting in the design. It has a kind of built-in handle that does not fold down. A lot of power stations are having fold down handles these days. But I will say one benefit to this handle being like a broader, just all-in-one handle, the device has a really good balance to it. You can grab it with one hand. It's about 33 pounds. It moves relatively like gracefully, because it's nice and well balanced. It's an interesting thing to notice, but when I grab it, I don't really feel the heft of having to move it and it being a struggle. It's relatively easy. It also has, as it relates to the design, a couple like non-slip grips on the bottom, not a couple. So that the device doesn't slide all over the place. It's a mixed bag for me. Sometimes I want my device to easily move. Other times I don't want it to move so much. I imagine if you're moving and mobile, you would want it to be like non-slip. Anyway, it has those on the bottom. I talked about the light briefly. I love the fact that the light is on the back of the device. Some devices have the lights on the front. Some of the devices have lights that aren't diffused. This one puts it on the back and it's also diffused. On charging the device, right? It has two 8mm ports where you can charge it from two different solar arrays. Now the solar charging range on this is about 12 volts to 30 volts. So it's a huge power station just in terms of like what typical power stations are. It has about 1500 watt hours of capacity. It would have been nice to see something where you could do a series of panels together, but I get it. They did what they had to do kind of back then to compensate for maybe the limited access to technology and so on and so forth. But this one has two 8mm ports that can be used at the same time. Now, where that's really dope is that you can charge it via AC and solar, 12 volt in solar, any number of combinations that you can dream of. I have used this thing with 2 different solar arrays coming into it. I have one 200 watt panel coming into it, and then I have 2 100 watt panels in parallel also coming into it. So this device has essentially replaced 2 whole separate devices in an area where I charge this device up at, which is really nice. I love that flexibility and those options that you have. Now, this is also cool for people who find themselves wanting to like 12 volt charge and solar charge or AC charge and not having to decide which one to be plugged in, because some devices, when they only have one means of being charged, then you have to constantly decide. So imagine you have a solar array on your roof and you also have 12 volt charging while you're driving. You could actually be doing both at the same time, and I think that that's dope. Now, the AC charger is a 2-part kind of situation. It's rated for about 200 watts. The max that I've seen it produces about 187. Me having that OG Oupes, that's a 100 watt charger that comes with that. So oftentimes when I'm using the inverter to power a larger load, I will take the 200 watt charger and the 100 watt charger and charge it at the same time just to get as much power as possible. It does not come with 2 AC chargers. You have to buy that. I imagine those would be available for purchase, but having 2 200 watts will get you 400 watts, which is a much better situation. But I don't charge power stations from the wall, but it's an option that's there for you if you're into that kind of thing. Now, during Jason Noy's OG video where he reviewed this, he had a situation where his device was showing that it had 2 60 watt outputs, but it turned out it was actually 2 60 watt and an 18 watt, which they corrected in terms of the printout on this device. I did do some testing to see if it would do what it did in his video, which was to take a device that could pull 100 watts and then try to pull that 100 watts and then error out. Check it out. I just popped this into my Go Labs, which can take in up to 100 watts, and it stopped at a proper 60 some odd watts. So it's not trying to pull in the actual 100. And this is a 100 watt rated cable. Now it is using 63 watts and the fan is running, which is kind of interesting for such a device. But that's what the fan sounds like using this one. So it didn't do that. I'm glad they addressed that in the build, both the aesthetic look of it and the actual functionality of the ports, because I would hate to have a situation where you thought you were putting in something and it would cap at the 60 watts, but instead it just errored out and then the device is never charged. That would suck. Now on the AC inverter, it's rated at 1800 watts. I did run into an issue. I don't know why, because they say that their surge is up to 4,000, but surge is a very tricky thing that I don't really take any stock in. So what I did was I tried to use this with my air fryer. My air fryer will use about 1700 watts according to some other power stations, but this one can't run it. So I'm not sure what that's about, but I just thought you should know. Air fryer, Oupes. AC's already on. It's at 15%, but that shouldn't matter because this ain't gonna take much. So let's get to it. It tried. There it goes. And I wonder if you actually heard that little so it couldn't do it. I'm not sure what error 4 is, but I'm sure it's just like, hey, you played too much. And since I quantified how it didn't work, let me quantify how it did work. I have used this with my male-to-male AC cables. Those things are really dangerous, but I'm inviting danger into my life with certain precautions. I have used it to run a whole side of my panel. That means my fridge will turn on without a problem. I don't have much else that would run off of that side of my panel, but it runs just fine. The only thing that I did notice is when I turn it on and that particular load kicks in of that whole side of the panel, you can hear like a little interesting, but it makes me feel like it's straining a bit, which pulling that much amps instantly is probably not ideal for a power station, but it does power the load. That's the ultimate point that I'm trying to make. In a world where I have very few power stations that could do 1800 watts, this one being kind of like maybe my second one that can do that amount of power, it has been a welcome addition, along with the fact that you can have those 2 MPPT chargers that gives you the ultimate flexibility with how you charge the device, giving you options. I use 2 solar arrays on it, but you could use any combination of things on it. I think this device is really interesting, and it may be very beneficial for those who are looking for flexibility and looking for a device without app connectivity, without the Bluetooth and all of that jazz. It works. It works really well too. Outside of my air fryer, I have no complaints with this thing. It has taken my power to a next level with that 1800 watt inverter, and I'm happy with it. They did provide me a coupon code. It will be down below. It will be active for as long as it is active. It is holla.